Well, good evening, and thank you for being here, and welcome to the Ogden City Council meeting for February 18th, 2014. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present, and we will now have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Gottner.
Please rise. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We'll now observe a moment of silence. Thank you.
Chair, before we get started, I would like to make a motion that is it a motion? Just make a motion that we move item 8A to take up just before item number 4.
I'll second it.
A motion to move item 8 to between 3 and 4 by Vice Chair Gottner, seconded by Councilmember Wicks. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll now move to item 8, new business concerning the Lantern House, which is a proposed joint resolution, and we've asked Councilmember Wicks if she would read that for us.
Thank you, Chair Heyer. I'd like to thank administration for working with us on this. This is Joint Resolution 2014-3, supporting the efforts of St. Anne's Center to secure funding from the Weber County Homeless Charitable Trust and other public and private entities for the Lantern House project. And it reads as follows. Whereas St. Anne's Center has provided exceptional service aiding the poor, needy, and homeless and providing food, shelter, and critical emergency services in our community for the past 19 years. These services help transition residents from shelter to housing and encourage independence, self-sufficiency, and self-confidence. And whereas St. Anne's Center has been well used and now faces challenges with inadequate space, dilapidation, and structural problems beyond repair. There is a pressing need for the construction of a new and enlarged homeless shelter to better accommodate patrons. We recognize the need to relocate these services, and in 2010, Ogden City donated 5 acres of land at 33rd Street and Pacific Avenue for the new facility. And whereas the Weber County Homeless Charitable Trust is an independent legal entity governed by a board of trustees created for the purchase, construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance of housing and support services for the homeless population of Weber County. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ogden City Council and Mayor Caldwell hereby recognize the importance of the Lantern House project and encourage trustees of the Weber County Homeless Charitable Trust and other public and private entities to exercise their discretion as appropriate and contribute funding for the construction of this new facility. Ogden City has a long-standing vested interest in Lantern House and joins the numerous other local leaders who have pledged their earnest support for the completion of this project. We recognize the vital services that this facility will undoubtedly provide within our community. So with that, I would make a motion that we adopt Joint Resolution 2014-3.
Okay, we have just for the record, however, there was some language
With the substitute.
with some substitute language that was different than what was noticed, so that is approval amenable to the motion maker on the second.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Wicks and a second by Vice Chair Gottner for adoption of this joint resolution, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gochner?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, and that passes unanimously. We do have Alan and Kay Lippman here, who are kind of running the show over there for Lantern House. Would you like to come up and Oh, for the fundraising? That's right. Thank you for correcting my verbiage. Would you like to come up and say a few words?
This is really a resounding resolution on behalf of the City Council, the administration, and the leadership of the City Council, and the mayor and his administration. He's not here today, but I guess he's represented by this guy in the corner. And I'm not sure, but I think he is. This trust, I'd just like to make a few comments, and it'll be only 3 minutes. I understand I only have 3 minutes. This is really overwhelming to both Kay and myself. This trust was funded by federal money from the sale of government land to the city of Ogden. And we have received support letters from Glenn Meekum and Charles Roskowski. Glenn Meekum is mayor and Charles Roskowski is president of the Homeless Council. In 1999, on July 22nd, both of them signed the agreement which established this trust, said how the money was to be spent, and those two letters of endorsement parallel what you have just passed today, and we appreciate it. I'll give copies of that to anybody who wants to have them. We also have letters of support from Matthew Godfrey, who came after Glenn Meekum and was supportive of the effort of to build a new shelter. We got Bill Bailey. A lot of you may not remember Bill, but he was county commissioner when the DDO sold the land to Ogden City. We got a letter of support from him. We got a letter of support from Blake Wallen, who is the general manager of Boyer Company, who bought the property. And in fact, their money is the money that went into the fund to fund this, which is about $1 million in the fund now, to fund this. And we also got a letter from Flora Olgan, retired city editor, who has really been a champion of this cause. These letters really parallel the endorsement we got from you people, and we certainly do appreciate this rounding support we've received. All these letters are on file, and they express about the same thing you express: complete support for the funding request that we put in for the trust to fund St. Anne Center. We're in desperately need of these monies. This could wrap it up. At least we could see the end. It won't wrap it up completely, but it certainly would be a good start. Again, my sincere thank you for your support, that of all the people who have worked for Lantern House, and especially the homeless, who will be not only the homeless that are homeless right now, but for the next 4 decades. These people will enjoy a housing that is much better than they have now. And that's who we're really working for, and I thank you. I thank on behalf of all them too. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan and Kay. We appreciate all the work that you've done to,
Thanks to you
with just
people.
volunteer efforts, and your heart's in the right place. We sure appreciate good folks like yourself.
Chair, we also ought to recognize Max Thompson. Max has done a lot to help also, and he's here tonight also. So, Max, we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, I think it's important for us to take care of others, but I wondered, Alan, can other individuals make donations to can other people make donations to your program, and how would they do that?
Oh, yeah.
You can do it any way you want to do it. We've been beating the bushes for three and a half years now. We can receive funds directly. Just make them out to the Lantern House, got their campaign, give them to our address. But we've secured about 6.2 million. Now this, which is significant, but we've been doing it for 4 years. I had black hair.
You can also go to the website and make contributions to the website. Just annotate it at the bottom. At the St. Anne's website, you can also make contributions only if it's for the capital campaign. Please make sure you annotate it specifically for that.
Thank you.
That was Jay Stretch, who's a member of the board of St. Anne's.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Did you have something you wanted to?
They've left no stone unturned. And I think the Lantern House facility will be a great addition to our community and help serve the homeless. I mean, if you've been to the current shelter, you can see that it really is in need of replacement. So thank you, Alan and Kay, and everybody else working to make this happen, and hopefully this helps push that along a little bit. So thank you.
Okay, we'll move on our agenda now to item number 4, approval of the minutes. Those minutes are work session of March 19th, 2013, and the work session of October 22nd, 2013. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, Chair, they're correct.
And now the joint work session of September 3rd, 2013, and the study session of December 3rd, 2013. Councilmember Garner.
Yes, Chair Heyer, I've reviewed those minutes and found them to correct to the best of my recollection.
And the work session of November 12th, 2013. Vice Chair Gochner.
I have reviewed those and found them to be accurate.
And the regular meeting of November 19th, 2013, and work session of November 19th, 2013. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, thank you, Chair Heyer. I reviewed both of those minutes and found them to be accurate.
And the work session of December 10th, 2013. Councilmember Wicks.
Thank you, Chair Heyer. I reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate, and with that, would make a motion that we approve the minutes outlined in items 4A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of the minutes by Councilmember Wicks and a second by Councilmember Garner. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. Okay, we now have our common consent agenda. There's 2 items on our agenda today. Fiscal year 2015 financial principles, proposed joint resolution 2014-2, and a grant budget amendments, proposed ordinance 2014-5. Pardon?
Just to set the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, to set the public hearing. So,
With that, I would make a motion that we adopt the common consent items A and B. First one, adopting Joint Resolution 2014-2, and the second, setting the public hearing for March 4th, 2014, for proposed ordinance 2014-5.
Second.
okay, we have a motion for approval from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Councilmember Blair. One to adopt the joint resolution and the other for to set the public hearing on the grant budget amendments for March 4th, 2014. And this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Now we're to item number 6, public hearings. The first item is, or the only item, the 17th and Washington Development Agreement. And this will be Mr. Cooper. I'll present this.
Chair Heyer, members of the council, thank you for your time tonight. Before you is proposed resolution 2014-2 approving the 17th and Washington Development Incentive Study and the terms and conditions of a participation and reimbursement agreement for the development of 2.26 acres located at the southwest corner of 17th Street and Washington Boulevard. I'd like to take a few minutes tonight and briefly discuss some of the points of the agreement and also the incentive study that was prepared. So again, the location of the property is at the corner of Washington Boulevard and 17th Street. It's 2.26 acres. There are currently about 5 or 6 buildings on the property. There's 6 parcels that comprise the entire project area. Under the terms of the agreement, the developer is to demolish all of the said buildings no later than September 30th of 2014. He's also to construct 3,000 to 4,000 square foot building on the property and also secure a tenant which produces at least $1.4 million of identifiable taxable sales per year, and that's to happen no later than October 31st of 2016. In the event that that does happen, then the city would contribute under the terms of the agreement to the developer $100,000 between the years of 2017 and 2021. That would be approximately $20,000 per year, and there are certain conditions and on an ongoing basis year to year that the developer would need to meet in terms of receiving that payment. One of those would be the evidence of timely payment of taxes, and also obviously the occupancy of the tenant on an ongoing basis. As per Utah State Code Section 1082, a study was conducted to determine value for this kind of incentive. And under the terms of that study, we were able to identify that the taxable value of the project currently in 2012 is approximately $946,000. And the new projected taxable value of the property after the proposed development would be $2.3 million. That's over the same 5-year period that the incentive would be paid out on, which is 2017 to 2021. That is how the $2.3 million is derived. In addition to the property tax benefit, we also project a sales tax benefit. Currently, the sales tax that are being produced on the property is zero. All the buildings that currently exist are empty, and so no sales tax are being produced. With the tenant that's required to be secured in the development agreement, we project an $8 million projected sales tax value between the years of 2017 and 2021. So that's a significant growth in the area based on the proposed development. In addition to property tax and sales tax, there are also quite a few indirect benefits from incenting a development such as this. One would be the removal of blight and safety and the safety hazard that currently exists. If you're familiar with the building, it's a rather large building. It being vacant, it's not being maintained very well, has roof issues. It's very close to the right-of-way, so it's almost in the right-of-way by that intersection, so it's a hazard in that way as well. There are also other revenues that would be generated from a project like this in the terms of fees, franchise taxes and fees, B&C road fees, road funds, those types of things. By bringing in new business to the area where there otherwise isn't business, we would see the benefit of business and employee expenditures throughout the years of operation. And also there's a significant impact to the neighborhood that it abuts. Right now, again, it's vacant, it's dilapidated, and to the west of this project are largely residential homes. And so by tearing down the old buildings and seeing new productive businesses come to the area, that would mean services and aesthetic benefits to the adjacent neighborhood. So with these benefits, the sales tax benefit, the property tax benefit, also the indirect benefit, we've also identified some other indirect benefits. Let's see, increased employment opportunities, obviously job creation. It's not a large site, so we don't see significant job creation, but again, when you go from zero to any, that's an improvement. So we are excited about that. And then also a catalyst for additional development. As you might know, this area of town is a transition from our central business district into what's considered maybe a forgotten area between 18th and 12th Street where there's not a whole lot of activity, there's not a whole lot of interest in terms of the development community. There hasn't been a new project there for some time, and so we see that this will complement some of the new businesses and new development that's happening in the Ogden Riverbend project, and also extend some of that benefit and some of that development north on Washington on its way to 12th Street. So we hope it acts as a catalyst. So in closing, the administration is requesting the council adopt the 17th Washington Development Study and authorize the mayor to enter into the participation agreement with the developer BNN Properties LLC for the development of the property. Our conclusion of the study, which has been available in the city offices for public review, is that the city views the establishment and subsequent development of the project as an opportunity to jumpstart new interest in private development in the immediate area, particularly by reducing the current blight, as I mentioned. Except for the use of the public investment that's being proposed, it's reasonably expected that the desired expansion and growth of the area would not occur or would occur in an undesirable manner. So again, it's our request that the council adopt the resolution 2014-2 as amended, and I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Cooper?
I have one. I'd like to go to the developer. When he builds those buildings on the site there, is there anyone that's going to review those plans that he would have?
Right. So there isn't any particular details about the type of development in the development agreement because the zoning and the site plan and planning commission review would govern those things, as well as the building services review. So those things will be handled under the context of the zone.
And also the tenants would be handled under those
Correct.
contents.
The permitted uses will also be dictated within the zone.
Any other questions?
I was wondering if Ms. Eller-Smith would maybe discuss the amended motion language and kind of the thought behind it.
So we had discussed previously about removing 2.6, and maybe, Brandon, maybe you could just address that and what that clause is and why you're okay with it being removed from the agreement.
Section 2.6 in the participation and development agreement would allow the city to prepay the incentive. So the $100,000 that's scheduled to be paid over a series of 5 years under this provision would be allowed to be prepaid. That's actually not conducive to the conditions that are set by the developer for annual payment. So it's proposed that that is struck from the agreement. And that's reflected in the amended resolution, I believe.
Well, we've got some motion language.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Thank you.
But this is a public hearing.
This is a public hearing. I was just waiting sure. I thought maybe there was another one coming from down here. Okay. This is a public hearing, so we'd like to hear your thoughts and comments on this proposal.
Seeing no movement, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. So voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve this, approve this development agreement with some new language that includes to remove paragraph 2.6 entitled prepayment, and that we adopt resolution 2004-2 approving the 17th and Washington Development Incentive Study and the terms and conditions of the reimbursement and participation agreement as amended.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Vice Chair Gochner and a second from Councilmember Stevens for adoption of the ordinance. And this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Member Stevens?
Aye.
Member White?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gochner?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Passes unanimously. Look forward to good things on that project.
And I just wanted to add a comment. I thought there was a lot of collaboration and a lot of back and forth on that, and great result. So, thank you.
I think it'll be a tremendous impact to that neighborhood also, and help assist us with development along Washington Boulevard in that area also.
Certainly that project, or that parcel has been in a dilapidated state for a long time, and it's going to be nice to have it improve, and it will certainly catalyze a lot of other developments nearby, we hope. Thank you. We'll now move to item number 7, reports from administration, the severance pay ordinance amendment. And I think we'll hear from Mayor Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chair Heyer, members of the council, the administration is proposing an ordinance that would expand the level of employee that is eligible to receive severance pay. That would expand it to deputy department directors and division managers. And currently, department directors, the CAO, deputy and assistant city attorneys are eligible, other than those assigned to the prosecution activities, and all appointed non-merit full-time employees in the mayor's office and city council offices. So again, this would add to that deputy department directors and division managers. And the reason for this is that this is something that we've been looking at for the past couple of years, and the legal suggests that we add to that list so that we encourage these level of employees to carry out their duties with openness and candor, knowing that they have some protection from possible involuntary termination in the event of a turnover in the administration. And it does allow, this would be adding about 15 additional positions. The positions aren't listed out, but it's all of the additional positions that are division manager level employees. There is a cap on the severance. It would be 1 month pay for every year that an individual has been employed, up to not to exceed 6 months. One of the other proposed changes, which we feel is very important, is to require not only that they sign a separation agreement with the city, which is part of, in other words, a full release of claims against the city, and that's part of the current city ordinance, but also to require that the separated employee provide reasonable consulting services upon request for a time period commensurate with the duration of the severance pay. So again, that might be up to a 6-month time period. And the reason being is that when a high-level employee separates from the city, we lose a lot of information potentially, and this just gives the opportunity for more of a transition from the separated employee to the new employee in the position. We might want to know where files are. We have some questions about ongoing projects and things like that. So we do believe that that's a very important part of this change.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
How long would you expect that to continue? If you learn 9 months down the road that you can't remember where something is, or you can't remember, somebody had a discussion with this department head, is that something that you would expect to have good faith?
The contractual agreement that we'd have with the employee will just expand out to the duration of the separation pay. So as a contractual matter, up to 6 months if they had been employed for 6 years. But
that's the term of that also.
Yeah, and there'd be nothing to prevent us from giving a call, as there would be now, but this gives that separated employee the expectation up front that we would be possibly calling on them to get some questions answered.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay. And that's pretty much it. There's some additional reasons that we've discussed that another reason to have a separation agreement or a separation ordinance is that it encourages and the ability for the city to hire higher levels of employees with skill and judgment and decision-making ability. And we want to attract the best possible employees and not have people perhaps decline an offer of hire because they're concerned about the stability of the position, if perhaps we're just a year or two away from an administration turnover or transition. So it does encourage the ability of the city to hire skilled employees at that level of the division manager as well as the upper level managers. Are there any additional questions for me?
I had asked this in the work session, but I'll ask it now because I think it's relevant. Do we know what other municipalities in the state do regarding severance packages for division manager level employees?
I know that's something that we discussed, and from your research, you were saying that city managers, that's not something that I've looked into. But it seems like this is a really just something that Ogden City can move forward with. As I said, there's an existing ordinance where we already offer the separation agreement to the department directors and the CAO, and also the non-merit full-time employees in the mayor's office and city council office. And it makes sense to extend it down to the division manager level employee for the encouragement of that ability to work in an open manner and to provide advice that may be risky at times or contrary to what you think someone may want to hear. But I think that is a good move for Ogden City. And again, wanted to emphasize that the amendment to require that consultation back is something that will really help us to make a smooth transition and not have to reinvent the wheel or additional costs to get the new employee up to speed. So I think, again, that's a very important part of the proposed ordinance.
I would think that information would be important for us to develop an ordinance, but could we have a report on that later in the process of finding out what other cities are doing or
Well, I did some research. It looks like Salt Lake does something similar for department heads. All other current appointed employees who are not department heads are eligible up to 1 week's base salary for each year of continuous city employment, up to a maximum of 6 weeks. So they don't do the month for people below department head level. But it applies to all employees that are appointed.
And can you talk a little bit about how does the city budget for this, and out of what pot of money?
And keep in mind that the goal of this is really to discourage this type of a transition. So, or to put a pretty high burden on when you're making these kinds of involuntary separations, because you're weighing the value of that employee versus the cost of separating that employee. But we do have the Manning document, which the City Council approves in the budget, which has the number of positions. And so if you're going to be separating this employee, then you're going to be looking for other resources within that department that the employee was in. So you don't do a budget opening or anything else for new funding, but it would come from existing funding.
I could probably more directly answer that question. It's not easy, and we look for money every place we can when we need to do it. There's no magic fund that we have set aside for people who are terminated or terminate. I mean, we even only reserve for so much vacation and some of those kinds of things. So some of that is even a bit of a scramble financially to be able to finance it. It's not easy. We don't have a line item for it. We just figure out how to do it in the budget.
Do we pay out sick and vacation too?
We don't pay out sick leave unless they're retiring. And if they're retiring, I think they're eligible for 50% of their sick leave.
But we pay out all their vacation if they give adequate notice.
That's their money. They're entitled to that.
Just to clarify, or to make sure I understand, it doesn't necessarily come out of a payroll account, but it does come out of that department account?
It could come out of payroll, it could come out of wherever else.
But there's no...
The director would figure out how to pay for it.
Okay.
And this is an existing policy that we're trying to cover more?
Exactly, right. So there's an existing severance pay city ordinance that already applies to certain non-merit city-appointed employees, and then we're proposing to extend that to division manager levels, which is a lower level than has been included in the past.
I could add just one other thing. The ordinance for the directors came several years ago when there was a mayor candidate who won, who had ran under the premise that he was going to be terminating some of the senior management team of the city. And so I think the city council at the time, which I was not a member of, was concerned about that. And so they put in place this policy for department directors. Ever since then, the division managers have felt like they've been hanging out to dry because they're appointed also and are at risk as much as a department director at times. You know, you look at Laurie Johnson, for example, in her role, or one of our attorneys, or et cetera. They're at as much risk if they speak up and to the political pressure. And so Gary Williams has probably been one of the champions of this, feeling that this is a fairness issue with the division managers, and it's something that needs to come forward. And we wanted to do it at a time when it didn't look like we were being forced to do it, but it would bring a fairness issue to the division manager so they would feel some protection in their own jobs. But originally, this ordinance with directors came by way of the city council. It didn't come by way of administration. And that was back probably 1999, 2000, somewhere in there.
Can you speak a little bit to the thinking that went into 6 months? I mean, making it comparable with the...
I'm actually not sure of the original history of that 6-month time period. I think it just seemed like that's the maximum. So 1 month for a pay for every year that a person had been employed here. So I think it's kind of a fairness. They felt that was reasonable. The longer you're employed, the greater the separation would be. So that was determined to be a reasonable amount at the time. Again, that weighing whether that employee, the value to the city of having that employee stay versus, you know, what would be a reasonable and fair amount to separate that employee.
I'm just curious if there's any, I mean, if there's more comfort, if there's like, I mean, it's 6 months for directors, but maybe for this level, it's not as long. I mean, did you have any discussion about that?
I don't know that we've had a lot of discussion about it. I just think we decided to extend to them what is extended to the senior management team. I mean, they don't make as much money as a senior management team, so that it's a less liability to the city, but it's no less of a issue to a family and to those individuals who are trying their very hardest to have worked here. You know, I've seen in my time here, I've seen people go out the door as a preference because they were appointed and they'd put, you know, a fair amount of their career here. And I think it was fair for them to, if they could have walked out with, 6 months of severance because of what they've invested into the city. So I think we kind of tried to weigh it and thought, it's kind of a fair balance. I don't think that their contribution's any less, and their severance would be less based because their salary range isn't as high, and so it kind of offsets itself. I don't know, Gary, if you want to add to that or not.
Yeah, he's right that the attorney's office really has kind of been bringing this issue up again and again over the last couple of years. The idea is that all the rank and file employees are merit employees. They can't be terminated except with cause. The directors and CAO and also now my assistant city attorneys are all protected. And that allows them to be very frank when something is wrong and speak up and not feel like they always have to be watching their back, that there's a little bit of protection to do what's right. So now you have the rank and file employees that are protected, the directors that are protected, and then in the middle, squeezed in the middle, is the division manager that's being pushed down upon to do certain things by political leadership on both sides. And they have none of the protections that the people below them or above them have. And so not a lot of thought was put into the idea of doing a different measure simply because the measure was foreordained by the council, 12, 15 years ago. They decided that was the right measure, 1 month per month up to 6 months. Nobody has really talked about whether there should be 2 tiers, given that, as Mark said, it's kind of a self-graduating system, given that there's different levels of pay depending on how far down you go. So I think that's been the general thought, is to just use the same system that the council thought was appropriate 15 years ago and go with that.
How are the rank and file employees protected?
Rank and file employees cannot be terminated but for cause, whereas a division manager can just be terminated for no cause at all. He's an appointed position. Even if they're doing something wrong, they don't have to be told what they're doing wrong. They just can be told, okay, it's time for us to part ways. And I've had a few of those conversations, and it's kind of uncomfortable when they've been here a few years, and there's, they might think it's politically motivated, but it doesn't matter, because politics is a legitimate reason for eliminating an appointed position, although there's always more. But very rarely do we have those kind of discussions because there's no need to show cause. And so you need to have an administration that can have appointed positions so that you can carry out the instructions of the political leader. But you also need somebody, at least in my opinion, that has a little bit of backup so they can make hard choices and make good decisions and speak up and not be yes men and women, and do what's right in all cases. So that's kind of the balancing act.
Well, council members, I'm kind of sensing that maybe there's some division. Do we want to, is there more questions that still need to be answered? Do we want to see this thing differently before we vote on it, or do we want to just try and take a vote, see how it goes?
I'm uncomfortable
I'm
with
fine
it.
to just go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Blair, what did you say?
He's fine to vote.
I'm fine to go ahead with this.
It'd be nice to have some more information, but I think we need to have an ordinance that protects our employees and gives them an opportunity to function in their employment.
I am relatively satisfied that this is a good solution. It does give some protection to department heads that wasn't there prior. I probably agree that it isn't perfect, but I think it's probably better than I think it's a step up than.
Actually, department heads were already included.
Well, department heads, but yeah, the division heads, sorry. But, well, I guess let's look for motion then to.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2014-6.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Garner and a second by Councilmember Blair for adoption of the ordinance 2014-6. And this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks.
No.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Garner.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gochner.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes.
I'll give the reason for my no vote. I had some concern about the lump sum payment. I also think that, I think it is important to offer protection to our employees. I just don't know that if, paying 6 months' salary of taxpayer dollars is appropriate all the time in this case. So
Thank you. I appreciate having that for the record. We do have some scouts, I assume. Do you young men scouts? We usually recognize you at the beginning of the meeting, but we'd like to have you come up and give us your name and what advancement you're working on, if you would. And maybe what troop you're from. We need to know that too. Just come up one at a time and, well, you can kind of file along in a line.
So name?
Yes.
My name is Eric Cook, and we're working on our citizenship in the community merit badge.
Great. What troop are you from?
Troop 72, or 71.
Okay, thanks. Come on up, young man.
My name is David. Oh, hang on. My name is David Spinelli, and like Eric Cook said, I'm also working on my citizenship badge, and I reside at 1275 Henderson Drive.
All right, there we go.
There you go.
My name is Seth Brinkeroff. I just barely came into the troop. I'm also working on my citizenship badge. I'm from PAC 71, and I live on Cross Street.
Thanks.
I'm Gabriel Melendez. I'm also working on my citizenship badge. I just joined the troop a couple weeks ago. Well, months ago, I guess. I live on Jefferson.
Great.
My name is Terrence Record. I am also working on my citizenship badge. And I live on Peach Drive.
Great, thank you.
I'm Steve Record. I am their Scoutmaster in the Lauren Farr First Ward. And this has actually been a very enlightening experience here.
Good. Looks like you got 5 prospective Eagles, huh?
Hopefully.
That's good. Well, thank you for coming up. This is time for public comment. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address clearly for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Looks like we've heard from everybody here that probably would have spoken. So we'll go to comments from CIO Johnson.
Not tonight, thanks. Nothing.
Council members. Okay. Well, we're at item 11, closed executive session. Mr. Williams, would you? Sorry?
You want me to give my speech?
Give your speech.
A closed session is permissible for the purposes set forth on the agenda, if you choose to do so.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn into a closed executive session.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move into a closed executive session. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks? Aye. Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Garner? Aye. Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gochner?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. That passes. And we will adjourn from the meeting in the other room. There will be a city council work session immediately following. The topics will be Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, fiscal year 2014 annual action amendment and budget opening, and other
business.
Council business.